restoring understanding of and devotion to the Blessed Sacrament. As we reported to you a little more than a year ago, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops hopes to spark a renewed love for Jesus' presence in the bread and wine through the National Eucharistic Revival. Right now, we're in the parish phase of the multi-year event aimed at fostering Eucharistic devotion and strengthening liturgical life at the parish level. Bishop Andrew Cozzens of the Diocese of Crookston, Minnesota, is chairman of the board of the National Eucharistic Congress. In a recent interview, he shared a rare insight. It's not just the faithful, but also the clergy who are learning more and more about the church through this revival process.
We've been doing a lot of different things in the Diocese of Crookston. We're a small diocese, but it's really a great place to try to implement some of what we're trying to do nationally with Eucharistic Revival. So we're just beginning the parish year. We're going to do a 5-week preaching series on the Eucharist. So I've changed the readings for all of October. A bishop can do this, I found out.
Yeah, that's cool.
So all the readings will be about the Eucharist for 5 weeks in October, which is kind of the time when most people come to church, you know. I mean, it shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it is. And so for 5 weeks, every parish is going to preach on the Eucharist, different aspects. And I'm just working out now what those aspects will be, each week a different aspect of the Eucharist. We want to give good education, but we also want to provide these opportunities for an encounter because we know it's actually that movement of the heart that makes the difference.
An EWTN News Real Clear Opinion research poll found that only 50% of respondents say they believe in the real presence of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. While the revival aims to teach, Bishop Cozzens shares that the real hope is that the faithful learn to build a personal relationship with Jesus.
The Eucharistic Revival is all about helping people have this encounter, right? In that way, it very much flows from Pope Francis's Evangelium Vitae, like this movement of encounter, which is life-changing, and that's what you see in the Bible, right? When people encounter the living Jesus, it changes their life. It's what Pope Benedict said, when you have an encounter with Christ, it gives your life a new horizon, a new direction. And so this is really our goal in the Eucharistic Revival, is to both create experiences, so both in community but also in prayer, where people can have that encounter.
Tim Glemkowski is the executive director of the National Eucharistic Congress. We sat down to talk about the vision to strengthen people's relationship with Christ. Tim, it's so great to be here with you to chat about the Eucharistic Revival, of which you are the head. Tell me how that came about.
Yeah, well, so I was part of the Committee on Evangelization with Bishop Cozzens that launched this work, and I mean, simply put, I just felt really called to it. I felt like God was doing something in the church unique right now, and honored kind of to be a part of it.
Now, people hear about the revival, they hear about the Congress. Explain the two things to us.
Yeah, sure. So the revival is the 3-year movement. Every parish, every diocese, every apostolate focusing on how we rekindle a living relationship with Jesus in the Eucharist. But we think every movement, which we see the Eucharistic Revival as sort of a movement of renewal in the church, needs a moment, needs a time to gather all together. And so the 10th National Eucharistic Congress in Indianapolis, July 17th through 21st, 2024, next summer, is really that moment. This is the first one we've done as a country in 83 years. Other countries do these every 4 years. And we're really bringing back a tradition as sort of the central point that everything kind of moves toward and moves away from.
There was just an African Eucharistic Revival in D.C. that we covered and we were very excited about. And we've kind of felt like we were receiving another gift from our African brothers and sisters to encourage us in this encounter. Are you seeing something like that as well, where it's global in addition to being local?
Yeah, we hear from people all over the place that are really excited about what they're seeing from the United States. I get emails all the time from people around the world talking about the National Eucharistic Congress that's coming up, and they're excited. And yeah, this is really something that we've, I think, lost as a country, and we're grateful for the gifts of people kind of inspiring a renewed focus on that here in the United States.
Now, because you were part of the committee, you understand the heart of this work. You remember the conversations that the bishops had around people not really understanding what the real presence of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist is. But Bishop Cozzens has started talking about really it being more about just having a relationship with Jesus Christ first. Is that really something that you're discovering as you do this work?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's really, belief is a complex reality. And I think the heart of really what God is doing to bring renewal in the church in general general right now is through a renewed encounter with Jesus in the Eucharist. And so, yeah, we see this as more than just kind of a catechetical initiative, sort of articulating the doctrine in a new way. We see it as God doing something to renew the church in her heart through a rekindled relationship with Jesus in the Eucharist. And that's really what we're seeing. I just talked to someone this morning who they set up a deanery, the Waco Deanery in Texas, set up a Eucharistic procession, and they were amazed. It was like pouring out the door. Like, people are hungry for something. There's a moment, a timeliness in our culture where people are really looking for this kind of renewal.
Now, Tim, one thing is habits, right? We go to church because that's what we do on Sundays, because we're Christians. Okay, but then there's really this belief that pours out of the organ of faith, which is the heart. Have you seen that change even within the Eucharistic Revival and Congress teams, where they're discovering something different about how they see Jesus Christ in their lives?
That's such a good question. Yeah, absolutely. I would say that's actually been the most unexpected part of this in my own life, has been, it's the classic, like, God called me to a mission, but what I've discovered is he's actually calling me to himself through that mission in a new way. And I mean, I could tell you a million stories, but like, absolutely. And kind of in a crazy way. We feel sometimes, like, we joke, we feel like The Chosen or something, like the TV show, like, where we've just kind of been like brought into this work, and everyone's got their own unique story of it, and the way he's pulling us all close.
Now, Tim, because you were part of this committee, you understand what the bishops were struggling with. They were struggling with the lack of engagement or the understanding of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist, the real presence. But did we learn something different during COVID, that it was really that they weren't encountering someone in the Mass? They had the habits of the Catholic tradition and the Christian beliefs, but they weren't actually encountering Jesus Christ. They didn't have that relationship. Are you finding that that is something that your team is also discovering?
Yeah, I would say that's very much so become the focus of the revival. Yeah, broadly for everyone else and for us personally too, is that I think Jesus is just inviting people to this relationship with him personally in the Eucharist. And that really covers a multitude of sins. You know, like, that's really the beginning point. Pope Benedict XVI in his first encyclical Deus Caritas Est said, being Christian is not the result of an ethical choice, like just a morality that I live or a lofty ideal, a philosophical system, but it's the fruit of an encounter with a person.
Yes.
And there's a person in the Eucharist, and that's what this Eucharistic revival has become about, is meeting that person.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, you're taking us to Indianapolis a year from now,
Can't
right?
wait.
You kicked off the countdown. It's already past a year from now. Why Indianapolis?
Yeah, it's central. The crossroads of America, the heartland, you know, and a great city to welcome a lot of people. They're used to NCYC events there, and they're used to the Super Bowl, you know, and so to have Lucas Oil Stadium and the convention center, the hotel surrounding it, just be so ready to prepare to receive so many Catholics, the city is pumped. They can't wait.
And a lot of people think, well, why is this for me? Am I supposed to go? Or is it just supposed to be my bishop or my priest or the head of, faith formation, whatever? Who's it for?
Yeah, it's a good question. We get that question a lot. I mean, it really is for every Catholic in so many ways. Whoever wants to encounter Jesus in the Eucharist and be part of a historic moment, it's for them. There's diocesan delegations. We've already sold about 25,000 passes. And really what the story that we're telling now to the church is, this is really for every parish. The Congress is about local renewal. It's about people coming to this gathering, encountering Jesus, and then being sent back to their local parish to bring the seeds of renewal to the local church there. And so we want to challenge and invite every pastor in the United States to look at his parish, and whether it's 3 people or whether it's 72, to say, who is God inviting on mission with me? And then to bring them to Indianapolis with him, and to make that commitment as a parish. And we're working on sort of, scholarships and alternative housing options to make it as accessible as possible. But that's really what we'd love to see, is every parish in the United States represented at this moment.
It's beautiful. Well, what comes next?
Yeah, this year is the Parish Year of Revival. We've got 3,300 parish point persons already moving, bringing revival to their parish. And then it's the National Eucharistic Pilgrimage in May.
Yes.
Two months of 4 routes walking across the United States with Jesus in the Eucharist. And then that Congress moment. But the Congress isn't the end. It's the beginning of the year of mission, where we send Eucharistic missionaries out. So we're really, in so many ways, still at the beginning of the Eucharistic Revival. We've just finished year 1 of 3. And so more surprises from God in store, I would imagine.
It almost feels like it's a transformation in the way that we live as church in the United States.
Yeah, that's really well. Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Montse. Thanks for having me.
EWTN has been providing updates on the Eucharistic Revival since it kicked off, with multiple interviews with leaders and participants of this multi-year event. As a media sponsor, we will be on the ground covering the historic first ever National Eucharistic Pilgrimages that begin in May of next year. EWTN will be following families on the various routes across the country who are making their way to the Eucharistic Congress that will be held in Indianapolis. The historic Congress is one at the start of the most important important parts of the revival, going out on mission to evangelize the country and bringing everyone to Jesus.